Panic erupted on the streets as people scrambled to find shelter from the impending doom. Sirens wailed, cars screeched to a halt, and buildings shook as the aliens unleashed their first salvo. The invasion had begun. The cities of Earth were no match for the advanced alien technology. Buildings crumbled, streets were reduced to rubble, and the once blue skies turned a sickly shade of yellow as the aliens' weapons ravaged the planet. The military scrambled to respond, but their efforts were met with devastating counterattacks. Fighter jets were shot down, tanks were reduced to smoldering husks, and soldiers were cut down by the score. As the world descended into chaos, Carlos, Lucia, and Adam watched in horror from the escape pod. They had thought they were safe, but now they realized that nowhere on Earth was safe from the alien onslaught. "We have to do something," Carlos said, his voice shaking with fear. "We can't just sit here and watch our planet die." "But what can we do?" Lucia asked, her eyes wide with despair. "We're just 3 people against an entire fleet." Adam's face was grim. "We'll find a way," he said. "We have to." Adam took control of the pod, taking it to its destination. As the escape pod hurtled towards the planet, Lucia's eyes widened in alarm. "What's that?" She pointed to a cluster of rocks ahead. "Orbital debris," Adam replied, his voice calm. "Don't worry, I'll navigate through it." But it was too late. The pod hit one of the rocks with a loud crash, sending it spinning out of control. Lucia's stomach lurched as the pod's gravity compensators struggled to keep up. "Ah!" she cried out, clutching her belly. "What was that?" Carlos's eyes were wide with concern. "Lucia, are you okay?" She nodded, but her face was pale. I think so, but my stomach dotted feels like it's doing flips." Adam's face was set in a grim expression. "We need to get out of this debris field now." He frantically worked the controls, trying to stabilize the pod. But it was too late. The pod hit another rock, and Lucia's cry of pain filled the small space. "Adam, do something!" Carlos shouted. But Adam's hands were tied. The pod was at the mercy of the orbital debris, and Lucia's condition was deteriorating by the second. "Lucia, hang on!" Adam yelled. "I'll get us out of this, I promise!" But as the pod continued to spin out of control, Lucia's eyes rolled back in her head, and she slumped forward unconscious. "Lucia!" Carlos shouted, panic in his voice. Adam's face was grim. "We need to get her to safety, now." The pod landed with a thud, sending up a cloud of dust and debris. Carlos, Adam, and Lucia stumbled out. They looked around, taking in their surroundings. They were in a small clearing, surrounded by rocky outcroppings and sparse vegetation. Lucia cried out in pain, clutching her belly. Oh God, it hurts." Carlos rushed to her side, supporting her. "Lucia, what's wrong?" "It's the baby," she gasped. "I think it's coming." Adam's eyes widened in alarm. "We need to get her to safety, now." Just then, a group of humans emerged from the nearby rocks, weapons at the ready. "Who are you?" one of them asked, eyeing the trio warily. Carlos held up his hands. "We're survivors. Our ship was destroyed. Please, we need your help." "Lucia's having a baby." The humans exchanged a glance, then nodded. "Follow us." They led the trio to a small makeshift camp where a nurse was waiting. "Please, hurry," Carlos urged. "She's bleeding." The nurse rushed to Lucia's side, examining her quickly. "We need to get her to the medical tent, now." As they rushed Lucia away, Carlos turned to Adam. "What's going to happen?" Adam's face was grim. "I don't know, but we have to hope for the best." The nurse quickly led them to a small medical tent, where she began to examine Lucia. Carlos and Adam watched anxiously as the nurse's expression grew more serious. "What is it?" Carlos asked, his voice trembling. The nurse hesitated. "The baby is in distress. We need to act fast." Lucia's eyes were wide with fear. "What's happening?" The nurse's face was grim. "We need to perform an emergency cesarean section. But there's a risk. It's a risk to both you and the baby." Carlos felt his heart stop. "What do you mean?" The nurse's voice was gentle. "Either Lucia or the baby might not survive the surgery." "I'm so sorry." Lucia's eyes locked onto Carlos, filled with a mix of fear and determination. "We have to try," she whispered. "We have to save our baby." The nurse's eyes were filled with a mix of hope and trepidation. "There's one option, but it's risky. We can inject you with Curium. It's a rare alien serum that can accelerate healing and strengthen your body enough to survive the surgery." Lucia's eyes widened. "Will it save my baby?" The nurse hesitated. "It's the only way to save both you and the baby, but there's a chance it could affect the baby's genetics." Carlos's eyes narrowed. "What do you mean?" The nurse's voice was cautious. "Curium is an unknown quantity. We don't fully understand its effects on human physiology, let alone fetal development. But it's the only option we have." Lucia's face was set in determination. "Do it. I'll take the risk." The nurse nodded and quickly prepared the injection. Carlos watched anxiously as the nurse administered the serum. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then Lucia's body began to glow with a soft blue light. Her eyes closed and her breathing slowed. The nurse monitored her vital signs, her face tense with concern. "It's working. But we need to get her into surgery. Now." As they rushed Lucia into the operating room, Carlos's mind raced with fears for the future. What would the Curium do to their child? Would they be born with strange powers or abilities? And what would be the long-term consequences for their family?